This could be one of the biggest red days ever.
Do I have your attention now? Do you believe me? Maybe feel a bit silly for not listening. Maybe. Now, in this crypto outlook, we are going to continue where we left off and continue on the next stages of what I think is going to happen. Now, I was mocked heavily for calling this, and of course, there's now been silence from those that have been mocking me. Now, we're not here to laugh at people that have lost money. We have seen the biggest liquidation event that crypto has ever seen. And a humble reminder that when I tell you these things, it's not to scare you, it's not to be bearish, it's not to farm engagement, it's to help you, it's to save you, it's to ensure you do not lose more money than you necessarily need to. Because as I keep saying, this game is about survival. And if you prepare for the worst, you will survive. Now we're going to break down what's just happened on the whiteboard again. And what we're then going to do is continue where we left off in the previous video to make it very apparent what I think is going to happen next. And it certainly isn't bearish. And in fact, what's just happened isn't bearish in my opinion. But most people at this point believe it's bearish. What a coincidence. And what a coincidence that a fundamental event was used as the ploy to create this movement. It's almost as if the markets are manipulated. So let's break down what's happened, and we'll go back to the whiteboard for this. And by the way, our membership prices will be doubling in November. So this is your last chance to get the current rate before prices go up and double. Now let's jump into the whiteboard. So now that we've broken the range and we have seen the biggest liquidation event we have ever seen in crypto, all of those liquidations below, and like I said, the 107K level was a very, very big target. And the total market cap came through to absolute perfection to that level. And the reason I'm not bearish is because we have seen something very critical to what could be a monumental moment now, for may I add, an alt season. And like I said, this could be the key to an alt season, and it's why I've been waiting for this moment. Because this is the first time ever we have not just seen liquidations of this nature, but many altcoins have hit all-time lows. Whereas Bitcoin is still trading around all-time highs, and we're still in a range. In fact, we've closed back above a range. I don't think it could be any better than what we're seeing right now. Because if this is the case, wouldn't you assume altcoins are going to fly next? And to put in perspective, the crash we've seen on Bitcoin from all-time highs is around 19% drop. But we're still up around 700% from FTX lows. To put in further perspective, this is actually not bad at all. I wouldn't even call it a black swan. And the reason why is during January, during Trump's inauguration, Bitcoin fell around 32%, which is quite insane, considering it's nowhere near what we've seen now. But the damage to altcoins, which has completely liquidated everyone, cleared all the order books, with some very questionable happenings behind the scene. Market manipulation? Who knows? Either way, some exciting stuff could be around the corner. And this is exactly why I told you. Now that we've cleared this level, and all of these liquidations have occurred, like I said, there was a liquidation cascade. What that means is when the market is rising up, creating a series of higher lows, more liquidations, let's change the color very quickly, are building below each level. And essentially, from some of the research I've done, and to be honest, I don't care what happened because we just knew it was possible. The reasons, the justifications, they don't matter to me. But either way, apparently, market makers pulled a lot of liquidity from the markets as well. I've heard rumors that Binance were targeting Wintermute. I've heard that Binance were attacked due to malicious actors. Who knows, who cares? Either way, these all got cleared. And anyone that was long specifically on altcoins has now been obliterated in this region. That's the first thing to mention. Now, what I should also mention is clearing this off right now, the importance of what was covered in the previous video, which is where those candles close and what those candles are intended to make you feel. So we noted In the previous video, for the total market cap specifically, we had again a big, juicy, green, very sexy candle. What is that candle meant to do? Greed, euphoria, FOMO, etc. Now that candle drove up to the range high and closed below. That for me often indicates that price is still holding that level. And this is why weekly candle closures are so important, because they basically give you an idea of, despite what's happened in that week, where the actual respected levels are and where the market is essentially finding a fair level or a suitable level of support and resistance, supply and demand, whatever you want to call it. Support and resistance is the easiest term. There's no need to complicate things here. We closed within that level. And Lord behold, the following candle, people short here as we get the first reversal. Looks a bit like a penis, I apologize. The following candle pops up, liquidates the shorters and blitzes through. But where did that candle close? That candle also closed back within the range. So we are actually still trading in range-bound conditions. Pretty good to me, because nothing has technically changed in that case. And the fact we've got that recovery is gorgeous. Now, I want to remind you, because as we now know, and hopefully you do from the previous video, markets are manipulated. And when you see that candle drive up to those highs, in traditional teachings, it will tell you it's a buy signal. In my mind, it's market manipulation. And if we are going to see an alt season, what do you think the market is going to do before that happens? The market liquidates everyone and it causes a capitulation event. So the one question I have for you is, considering we just saw the biggest liquidation event in the world, the hyperliquid leaderboard is like a fucking graveyard. You've got like 60 millions, 40 millions. And the worst part is people trading with even 2 times leverage were liquidated, which is theoretically a completely safe amount of leverage to use. Even they got targeted. Why could this be the case? And more importantly, if most people got liquidated, and furthermore, most people were scared to buy during that period, I was not scared to buy. And I told you, if this happens, I will buy aggressively. And I've put almost $1 million into the market now. And I'll probably put in more if we do go lower, which will soon bring me to my next point. Do we go lower? Now, the question you need to ask yourself is, who caused the bounce? And who bought all these assets back up through whatever means? Algorithmic, insiders, or coordination? We don't know. But what we do know is, during a period of severe liquidations, the biggest in history, all of these assets rebounded aggressively. So who was doing the buying? And furthermore, who was doing the selling? Now, there's a lot of speculation as well regarding the hyperliquid whale that mysteriously knew beforehand to short BTC. Was it Baron Trump? Was it another malicious actor? Again, we don't know, we don't care. But we clearly can see the evidence that this was a coordinated and premeditated event. And now you know you can predict this stuff from technical analysis. Just trend lines. That's all I used. I just used 2 trend lines in theory to predict all of this. And that's the beauty. If you understand where the market can go, you can see what's happening. And you can see exactly where these malicious actors will probably target. So what I'm interested in now is, who the hell and who the helly was buying here to spring these back up? You tell me. Did they happen to nuke these assets, specifically altcoins, to accumulate them at a very low price, at levels that were outstanding, by the way? And I have been tracking with members for months on end now. And now we finally got that. We've basically seen the bottom. Because whilst BTC is still, as an example, up here in this range, it's done that basically, it's within the range again. Now, as BTC is up there, you've got a bunch of altcoins that have been in massive bearish trends for a very long time. And what they've just done is taken out their lows. So that could also be a great indication that profit rotations could be underway for many of those altcoins, going from BTC into altcoins. And I think Ethereum, as I've been saying, is the star of the show. And from the previous video, we saw a pinpoint strike into that zone we covered of around $3,500, which could be another very telltale sign. Now, XRP got slaughtered. I'll be honest, I kind of threw it out there. We could break the actual monthly wick lows into that $1 region, but I wasn't actually expecting it to go that low. I was looking at like $2, 1.8, but we blitzed, but it recovered. That could be a sign in itself. Now, as this has happened, we can clearly see that the money is probably rotating from Bitcoin, which we will call BTC up there, into altcoins over here. And that rebound, for me, is a clear indication that there was an intentional force of buying that took place at these very levels. And historically, the last time we saw something of this nature was COVID and FTX, specifically COVID. Now, you can't truly compare this to COVID, and it's why I'm not necessarily classifying this as a black swan, but more so what I've been saying is an intentional liquidation event to wipe people out. It was a black swan with the characteristics of how it just dropped straight down, but it wasn't as bad in theory because BTC is still trading at all-time highs, Ethereum still near all-time highs, Solana's very strong, BNB's made new all-time highs. What has actually changed? Not much necessarily. But the point here now is this could be the crucial moment because there's two things that are really taking place. I personally believe the tariff excuse was bullshit. And as always, there will always be a fundamental justification to justify why they are doing particular malicious moves in the market. Furthermore, that quickly reversed. We may see a lot more nonsense from fundamentals and tariffs and wars with China, whatever, but realistically, that was probably the worst of it. Now, a lot of people at this point, ironically, at this point in time, wanted higher. Now that we've got this move, everyone, coincidentally, is waiting for lower. Now, I would normally, in these circumstances, to be completely honest, be very open to the idea that we can take this low out one more time, and I'm very open to it, and I will buy even more if that happens. However, in these circumstances, and often during these forms of cataclysmic events, dare I say, the market can often be incredibly unforgiving. So what is the max pain scenario here? Logically, it is the market continuously pursuing an upside move without truly going deeper. Because whilst we haven't seen the greatest of capitulation, we have seen a lot of people that are not in. Now, how are you going to get those people in and what could be happening from here? Now, I shared this throughout previous videos, but the quicker we dumped, the higher the probability moving into the end of the year, into Q1, Q2 of 2026, we could see a parabolic explosion higher once the liquidation event has taken place. So you've now got a bunch of people waiting to buy here for that dip. But if that dip doesn't come, where is everyone going to buy? Those altcoins. As an example, those people will be waiting for the dips. So they didn't buy here, and they're probably waiting for something like this or this. However, if these start to blow up higher, the same people that got liquidated there and probably and possibly capitulated there will jump back into the market up here. And that will be applicable to Bitcoin, which I said in the previous video, I think is going to go to 150, 160K at least. If it doesn't, it could stay in the range and altcoins blow up higher. But the fact of the matter is a lot of people are not necessarily sidelined, but they didn't get into the dip. So the same way I said the market is luring people in here to wipe them out, it's now done the inverse to the downside. And what that means is these people could be forcefully forced back into the market if we explode higher. And for me, the best way to achieve that, as we often see, by the way, after these kind of events, is a huge move to the upside. Parabolic in some forms that breaks the all-time highs again. And at the moment, I actually believe, and you don't see me say this often, but if you follow me on X, I've come back with a bang because I'm bullish and I'm very rare. Well, I mean, I was bullish anyway. I have been for a long time. But it's these moments and these predicaments that happen in the market that make me increase my bullishness because this is normally where the crazy shit happens. And this is why I keep capital on the sidelines. During these moments, when I say I'm keeping cash on the sidelines for a dip, people will be like, you're greedy, you're sidelined, you're not in enough. Now you know why. This is everything I try to teach you and everything I teach in our app for members on a continuous basis. I have books in the app on this. I have courses in the app on this. My whole educational process is based on trying to save people, but most people don't want to be saved. So the likelihood is now, if we start to see Bitcoin bolster up as well, all of those people that are waiting for the major dips will likely re-enter. If you consider the circumstances of how this wick happened, it was due to a rather irregular, nonsensical moment and event. Therefore, there's not actually as much of a higher probability we would even fill those wicks right now. And if anything, they could be targeted later down the line, once we're in a bear market, which will bring me to my next point. So can we go lower? Yes, of course, but I don't think we will go that much lower. But what I will say, as always, is if I'm wrong and we do get the wick fill, I wouldn't be scared there. But it's that classic human psychology, it's human instinct. When we were trading at all-time highs of 126, human instinct and psychology is to follow the color of the candle. What do people want there? Higher. But as we go lower, people start to look lower. But why I mapped these levels out for you meticulously on total is because that is the overall boundary. You know, can you necessarily want lower when the market's already given you the hugest of nukes overall? People who don't prepare for this stuff will naturally shift in line with the candles, especially if they move aggressively, and then look lower. And that's why this is probably happening, because people now expecting 70k, 80k, etc. Realistically, 90 to 70k is very possible, but I just don't think it's going to happen now. Anyway, moving on to my next point here. Realistically, as I've been saying for quite some time, I don't believe the cycle's over without an alt season. What do you think probably happens next? And what do you think is the top marking indication of an alt season? Or a cycle, sorry, an alt season. Now, we've probably seen the textbook traits that normally lead to those alt seasons being completed. Because let's be honest, BTC is significantly closer to the end of its cycle than it is to the beginning of its cycle. So we'll reiterate this again. What may now happen is as BTC trades up here and kind of done that nonsense in the range, we could be seeing one final break higher. And that will be BTC exploding up towards most likely 150, 160, if we're lucky 180 to 200k. Who cares? We're not buying Bitcoin because the percentages are diminished. Altcoins are where we want to be looking. Now, throughout this final window, as this is all happening, again, most altcoins, let's say like Ethereum and Solana, are basically kind of lower in that sort of territory over there. And a lot of them are kind of pending a similar move. But then we also have a ton of altcoins, dino coins that are just not looking too good to most people. To me, they look gorgeous. And I think one of the proofs that we could be seeing, or should be seeing those coins recover is Zcash. We hit over 1,000% on that with the members. And that's a dino coin. Like, what the hell is Zcash even doing? But that is the same for most coins. I think this will be the hated parabolic rally that leaves a lot of people sidelined for the finale, that then brings in a huge amount of exit liquidity. Because the key to retail interest is, of course, retail jumping back in through altcoins. Retail don't care about Bitcoin. No one's buying a coin for 100k anymore and expecting to get rich. But the key to psychologically embedding people, as we saw in 2021, specifically with NFTs and all the other nonsense, even meme coins, I think memes will recover, specifically Solana on-chain, aggressively, which will soon lead me to another point. We don't even really need the charts here right now. In fact, this is going to be a whiteboard-only lesson for this particular video, because I'm going to break this down as much as I physically can, because if you watch the previous video, which I highly suggest, you will know exactly what I'm looking for anyway. It's all been mapped out weeks in advance. So continuing on this manner, you've now got altcoins here. The other half of the altcoins are in a bearish trend that are somewhat in that region of taking out all-time lows. So the finale for this cycle could very well be Solana F. Again, let's illustrate this. BTC, Sol. Let's say like BTC, F as an example. You can also throw XRP, Solana, etc. into that bundle as well. And let's think of a coin. I don't know. We'll just say others. That was horrible, but you get what I'm saying. Others. Now, I think what's going to happen is this is going to rocket. Ethereum is going to bolster. Now, if you've paid attention to the previous videos, I believe Ethereum is going to go to 8K. Logically, from 6 to 10K, That is the key area. 6K is a logical level, but I realistically think 8 to 10K is very possible because F is often the final mover, and F has been heavily suppressed in this cycle and likely the most hated. It kind of becomes a meme because it keeps going near highs and then dumping. But this could be the last time, and anyone that got shaken out could potentially miss one of the biggest moves we see for F to go to 6K. And simultaneously, many of these other altcoins like mid caps, low caps, etc., will probably bolster up and do exactly what Zcash done as well. Now, of course, if you're holding altcoins and you think about retail interest, they need this mostly. The coins they bought in 2021 or 2020 to 2022 that they probably bought near all-time highs up here. And they have been holding in a very significant drawdown now for a very long time. And if they haven't already capitulated or been liquidated, what they most certainly will do, as most retail traders do, is not take profits. What they will do instead is buy back up as we start to reach what is possibly the top of the market. Because if BTC is at the cusp of ending this cycle, of course, if these begin to catch up, and this is why I believe we're going to go higher, because if you consider the drop that happened on BTC and why I looked for those levels on BTC, is because it would bring mostly Ethereum and these other altcoins down. But let's be honest, what's the other alternative here? If Bitcoin breaks this floor, this range, further, all of these will die. F will probably survive, but then all these other altcoins would cease to exist and go to zero. So it doesn't actually make sense here for that to happen. What does make sense, as it always does normally, is the altcoins catch up. So at least they go to their own respective equivalent of a midpoint, let's say 50, 60, 70, 80% retracement, or back to all-time highs. Because of how low I buy, I don't actually need all-time highs, but you get my point. If they catch up, that then allows BTC a much more plausible drop from, let's say, 150, 160, or 200K to crash back down, which will logically bring all of these back down to their lows. And this brings me to my next point, which you may have seen me tweet about the other day. I think this is all very intentional. And if we go back to January, you need to think about this logically. President Trump, at the core of it all, is a businessman. A businessman. Now, he's in the game of making money, and if you haven't already realized, he tricked you in January. And it's all a trap. It's a psyop. The pro-crypto president. And if you go back to tweets, and I'm not going to bring them all up, but I was going through them the other day, around November to January 2024 to 2025. And all of the tweets when Trump was becoming president and in that transition phase to the administration, all of the tweets are Trump's going to pump our bags, Trump's going to send us to the moon, Trump's the savior, now everyone hates him. You're being used as a mule to basically see the transition into CBDCs, which will be a much deeper video in the future. But the point here is, before destruction happens, I think once this cycle is over, there is a greater chance the bubble could implode. Because right now we've got a free ride. Trump strategically reduced a lot of regulations on what is theoretically rather criminal behavior. And he's getting away with a lot of this, and there's a lot of market manipulation going on. The difference is this time it's more visible than ever. And if you haven't woken up by now, I don't know what to tell you, because you are sleeping if you haven't seen the criminal levels of market manipulation taking place. The unfortunate reality is there's fuck all we can do about it. But hey, I prefer the market manipulation because that's where money is made. Now, to continue where we are, this could be the biggest cycle ever, but of course, gold's at all-time highs at unfathomable levels, silver's broken its highs, the stock market's at highs. For me, as I said with the range high, the more we squeeze here, the closer we could be to a total market collapse. We're talking economic collapse, maybe a recession. Either way, when I see things reach this level, the average person looks at it and goes, we're invincible, it's going to go up forever. It's normally a danger sign, because in my opinion, they are milking the living shit out of the current system before we transition into the new system, a digitalized system based on tokenization and centralization and mass surveillance and control. Now, of course, the current administration has made it very clear that there is an anti-CBDC surveillance act, and they won't do anything of that nature. That is only the case in theory for Trump's current administration. But when the next administration comes in, they could be weaponizing everything Trump is now doing, which isn't necessarily helping the reputation of crypto right now, let's be honest. And from a mainstream acceptance basis and adoption, crypto's not looking too good in the eyes of the average Joe, especially for those that just got liquidated. Realistically, most of us are just mentally ill and degenerates, and despite what's happening, we just keep thriving and we keep going. Maybe it's an addiction, who knows? But for the average person, it's not a very reputable sector, is it? And everything Trump's done could be weaponized by the next administration, which means right now, whilst there's a slight weakening and dampening on regulatory measures, the next administration could really clamp down on those, which will bring into play many further questions. And of course, as always, what normally happens in these circumstances? The more people that get brought into the market here, the more people that get ruined if we see a market collapse. And I have no doubt that the next bear market that probably follows from what the hell is about to happen next will be the worst we've ever seen. Because if that's the worst liquidation event we've seen there, what the fuck happens if we go higher? You tell me, especially if the average retail altcoin holders jump back in and FOMO in at the top. And the more parabolic these moves are, which is why I think it's going to be very parabolic, the more people jump back in. The more people start to spread the word. The postman and the milkman and your Uber driver suddenly tells you, bro, you need to be buying this coin and this coin. 2021 all over again. But it could be the last time. The more people that get damaged buying into the tops of these cycles, the more they will have technically support and the easier they will accept any form of savior and implementation the government enforce. And of course, if things really go tits up, as always, it goes problem, create the problem, first of all, you know who, and at that point, it then goes provide a solution. Now, people are much more willing to accept possible solutions if they are in a vulnerable stage and need assistance and help. And if people get damaged from what could follow after, they will be more likely to accept the idea of CBDCs, or universal basic income. There's many things to it. Now, we're going to go into that much deeper in a future video, but the point here is these things are, again, not mentioned to scare you, and hopefully that's woken you up now to the reality of how markets operate. The longer we rise without a pullback, the harder it is to perceive the possibility of these things. But by simply zooming out and expanding your perception of not just the markets, but life overall, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to wake you up and help you. You know, I just want to remind you, nothing we do here is malicious. And hopefully you can see that now, because we did try to help you. It's not to scare you and make you get out of your entries or do this or do that. The aim of the game is survival, man. You can't be a profitable trader if you have no money left to trade with. And that's the key to crypto. It's making sure that you are protecting yourself every step of the way. Unfortunately, as a spot buyer, you're okay. But what happens if things get worse and we get into a capitulation event? The point here is everything here works in cycles. The market goes up and then the market goes down. The aim of the game is to keep as much of that cycle money that you make as possible, knowing very well what game you participate in. The game is manipulated. It's a game of cat and mouse, and you are not the cat. You are being pursued and hunted on a continuous basis. And your goal is to understand that's the reality of the game. We are powerless in this game. Tadpoles, meaningless, mortals, pathetic, mudbloods. However, the higher powers that be that truly pull the strings behind the scenes will always continue to pull these tricks and traps. Your goal is to avoid them as best as possible, or at least perceive exactly where they could take place. And on that note, I'm very excited for what's coming, because if all goes accordingly now, beautiful things could be happening moving forward. And if I'm correct, that alt season could hopefully finally be around the corner. I hope you have a good day. And just a reminder, the membership price is double for Innovation Markets in November. So if you want to get in, you need to ideally get in before that time. And if you lock in the current rate, you get to keep that rate forever, as long as you stay subscribed.